Hello, I'm Wendy J. Haney and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make the crow's nest block. Yep, it looks similar to the shoe fly, but it's not. And this also in the past has been referred to as an attic window. But if you Google for attic window, you're not going to find this block. You're going to find a completely different block. But that's the way it goes. There's so many different names for various quilt blocks. Okay, here we go. This is essentially a 9-patch. We have 3 squares across and 3 down. It's a fairly straightforward block. We have half square triangles in our corners, so we need 4 of them. And I'm going to show you a super simple way to make 4 at a time. And then we have rail fence on the 4 edges in the middle. And then we have a simple square in the very center. Now, stay tuned. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you a different way that you can take basically these same things, and we're going to add a 9-patch in the middle, and you've got a little bit different block. So that's a little bonus video at the end. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. Here's the tricky thing. Usually what I tell you when it comes to a 9-patch is you want a square that's easily divisible by 3. Okay, that would be 12. Generally, I go with a 12-inch block for a lot of the stuff that I'm showing you because 12 divided by 3 is 4. Well, guess what? These little pesky rail fence blocks, yeah. It's not just about dividing by 3 this way. You have to take a look at what's this block size and how are we going to divide it by 3 for our 3 strips. And if you go towards a 12-inch block, you're going to end up with really weird 1.83 blah, blah, blah sizes for those strips, which you don't want to deal with that, and your ruler can't deal with it. So I would suggest a 9, 13.5, or 18-inch squares when it comes to this, because that way your strips here need to be 1.5 inch. Your center square is 3.5 inches, and then our half square triangles need to be 3.5 inch unfinished. Let me clarify that, 3.5 inch squares unfinished. So I'm going to show you how to get this all put together and a few tips and tricks, because if you look at this a little closely, you'll find out, you know what? It's not perfect. Excuse me. So I've got some tricks to help you get yours better than I did with the first pass. We are going to start with our rail fences because you know what? They look super simple, but you know what? They can give you a little bit of a problem. I'm working with a 3.5 inch unfinished block, which means each of these strips need to be 1.5 inches wide. Okay, so 1.5 inches isn't very wide, which means you need to be pretty doggone accurate with your cutting and your piecing of 1/4 inch. Otherwise, you'll end up with what I had here, and I've got blocks that aren't quite 3.5 inches. Yup, I've been doing this for a long time, but sometimes there's some blocks that just, I don't know, give me a problem, or sometimes it's just one of those days. So with that said, I'm going to show you a little technique, because you know what? A lot of the blocks that we do, like I'm going to show you how to make your 4 half square triangles, and we make them a little larger than are necessary and we trim them down. So sometimes, hey, why not give ourselves a little grace and do the same thing? So that rail fence, it's not super easy to do it that way, but I've come up with a technique that if you need to use it, you've got it in your back pocket to try. Okay, for our rail fence, whoopsie, now I can't get my hands around it. Let's show you here. Your rail fence, you've got your dark color in the middle and 2 strips of your light fabric on the outside. So, easiest way to do this is, voila, strip piecing. Yes. Okay, so we're going to get our fabric here. Okay, here's my light. So in this case, I need, basically, we're gonna need 4 3.5-inch subcut blocks of that rail fence. So I need 14 inches of that strip. So the easiest thing to do is, especially for the light, is cut a full width of fabric of 1.5 inches. And then for the dark, you're only gonna use one of those. So if you're making one block, well, you're gonna end up with some extra fabric that you don't need. But if you're making multiple blocks, just cut the strips. Okay, so important thing, make sure you're squaring up your fabric, because in this, it's going to be critical. Granted, I have already cut some from this, so it should be square, but of course I've tossed it around and put it here and there, and yep, sure enough, it is no longer straight. Okay, so I line up here at the bottom, and I see I'm off my video there a little bit. Here at the bottom, I put a ruler, make sure it's even on the edge of my fabric. Then I put my long ruler next to it and making sure it comes all the way and it covers the fabric all the way to the top. Okay, so I'm gonna square up my fabric. Okay, here's the deal. Now, with this said, as I mentioned, I only need a 1.5-inch strip. But if you struggle with the cutting, you know, a lot of times sometimes it just doesn't end up as straight as you'd like, especially when you're doing a whole width of fabric. So what I would recommend, if you're concerned at all, or if you're struggling with getting these rail fences right, cut these strips 1/8 of an inch more. So we're gonna cut 1 5/8. Yep, you're gonna give yourself a little wiggle room and grace. And that's what I'm going to do now, so I can show you how to do this. Otherwise, cut them all 1.5 inches and sew them together, and that's exactly what you need to do. But this is gonna give you a little trimming power. Okay, so there's my yellow, and I know I need it cut in half, so I'm just gonna take it here at the bottom on the fold, and I'm gonna just cut it in half, okay? Because now it's 21 and I need at least a 14-inch strip. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. Now, we're gonna get our dark, and yeah, I've been messing with this piece of fabric, so I cut out my larger pieces earlier. So I only need one strip of this that is 14 inches. So you know what? I'm gonna just go with what I've got. And let's see how straight we are. Not so much anymore. So we're gonna square it up again. Yep, I'm just square it up. Okay, now the centerpiece, you could easily cut this 1.5 inches and still use the method I'm talking about. In this case, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it 1 5/8 inches as well. Okay, so now we have our 2 strips, and one of them I've cut in half. Okay, here's the thing. One, you're gonna go to the ironing board and iron out this spot in the middle, okay? Then, once again, this is not what you necessarily need to do. If you've cut all your strips 1.5 inches, then what you're gonna do is put them together. You're gonna take them to the sewing machine And you're going to line them up and sew a 1/4 of an inch there. You're going to open this one up and you're going to put your other light fabric on the other side and stitch in 1.5 inches there. And what you're going to end up with then is this. You're going to end up with a strip unit of your lights on your outside and your darks on your inside. Okay? That's what you need to do. And I'm going to finish showing you this, and then I'm going to go back and show you what I did to get more accuracy when I cut 1 5/8 inches instead of 1.5 inches. So stick with me here. So these I need, so this should now be, this strip in the middle should be 1 inch. 1 inch in the middle. Yep. And now, you know what? I'm going to back up on you. I'm going to go iron that piece of blue, and then before I do this, I am going to show you how to take advantage of those 1 5/8 inch strips, because that way I can also show you how to trim them up when you're done. Because once you're doing this method with 1.5 inch strips, it's really, really straightforward. Little extra work if you're working with 1 5/8 inch strips. Okay, I ironed my blue so I don't have my ridge in the middle of it. Okay, if you decided to go the route of cutting your strips 1 5/8 inches, then the key thing we're gonna do, the benefit of this is the way we're actually gonna mark the strip. I know that's incredibly strange to do, but as I said, it's very important to get these rail fences so we've got a full 3.5 inch square. Here's the kicker. Nobody's gonna fully notice on this block. You don't have to match this rail fence in the middle in any way. And nobody's gonna look at it and go, I think that's a little less than 1 inch in the middle. They're not gonna know. But here's what we're gonna do. So what I did was I took my strip, I laid it out, and here's the thing. Sometimes you gotta nudge it once in a while in order to get it so the edge is, well, hang on here. Basically what I want to do is have the edge of the fabric, and so sometimes what you do is you just tug on your fabric there, because basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the 1/4 inch stitch line. Yep, I know, and if you're really great with your 1/4 inch, then you aren't going to have to deal with this at all, and if your cutting is just perfect, that's great. But I want to give you an option if you struggle with this, because it's kind of a cool block. Okay, so basically what I did was I tugged this strip a little bit so that I have a 1/4 of an inch. So my 1/4 inch line on my ruler is on the edge of the fabric. And then take a marker. Now, if you use a friction pen, then you're not gonna wanna iron your strips in between putting on the yellows, the lights on the outside, because I did, and then I lost my mark. So, totally up to you. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna use a really fine pencil. Okay, so basically I am marking a 1/4 inch from the edge of this blue strip, and that is going to be my sew line. And that like totally did not mark well enough. So we're going to use my friction pen, which works much better, and I can see it, and I'll just have to remember to not use the iron. Okay, so that is my sew line when I'm doing my strips. Now, you do not want to do that same measurement of a 1/4 inch from the other side. No, because you cut this strip a little bit larger. So instead, you want to do a measure 1 inch over from this line, because the middle strip needs to be 1 inch when all is said and done. So that means one of these sides, your seam's going to be a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, and the other should be exactly 1/4 of an inch, and that's okay. And actually, if you want to slap this thing in the middle, there we go. So now I have, hopefully, let's see if you can see it this way. If not, I will take a picture of it. Basically, I have 2 lines, and they're 1 inch apart. And those are going to be my seam lines. Then we're going to take our lighter fabric. Take my light fabric, and I'm going to pin my strips together. Yep. And we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch on the line. Now, if you cut these 1.5 inches and you've got a wonderful 1/4 inch seam, then you're not going to have any problems at all, and you're going to end up with a nice, a nice 1 inch strip of dark fabric in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and stitch on my line. Then when I'm done, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to open this up. Oh, hang on here. We're going to do it this way. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have your blue and your yellow, and they're going to be sewn together on the line. Then you're going to open that up, and you're going to, because you want to have your blue on the top so that you can see your seam. And then you're going to come back here, and you're going to put your other yellow strip there, and you're going to sew on the line. This is going to give you an exact 1 inch strip of blue in the middle of your fabric, of your strip. So when you get done, you have this. And if you did 1.5 inch strips, this should be a perfect 3.5 inch piece of fabric, top to bottom. And it's going to be a 1 inch strip of dark fabric in the middle. And then you've got your 1 1/4 on either side. Now, if you did what I just did and used marking lines on your center fabric and cut your strips 1 5/8 inches, this is going to be wider than you need it to be. This is where the trimming comes in. So in that case, trim up one edge. So here, let's trim up this edge. We're going to trim up this edge over here. And what you're going to want to do is make a line, keep it straight on your seam of your dark fabric. That is your center piece, okay? Then come over here, you need it 3.5 inches wide. And as you see, mine is 3.75 inches, 3 1/4 inches. So it's longer than I need. So what we want to do though is this top strip should be 1 1/4 inches. And then the middle is 1 inch. So you should be able to line up 3.5 inches over here. Put your 1 1/4 inch line at the top of your dark fabric. The 2 1/4 inch should be at the bottom of the dark fabric. And now you're going to trim it. You're going to trim it 3.5 inches wide and then trim the top. Okay, and we're going to flip it because this side is a little larger than we need to. In this case, we can put the 3.5 inch at the bottom, 3.5 inch on the side, and once again, you should have your blue, your dark fabric in the middle, should be at the 1 1/4 inch line at the top and the 2 1/4 inch line at the bottom. And then we're going to trim the top. I now have a perfect 3.5 inch rail fence with my middle piece of fabric exactly 1 inch wide. Yes, this technique does take a little more work because you're marking your strips. And if you don't need to and can do just 1.5 inch strips and end up with a perfect 3.5 inch square, go with it. That is awesome. But I don't want you to not do this block if you're struggling getting this rail fence well done. This way, it gives you wiggle room to trim things up. So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna do the same thing and cut 3 more of them because I need 4 of these rail fences. Now that we have our 4 rail fences all cut and ready to go, they're all, oops, I ended up doing an extra one. We've got 4 perfect 3.5 inch rail fences. Okay, now we're going to make our half square triangles. And I have a method that allows you to make all 4 of them at the same time with 2 pieces of fabric. Now, I'm not going to show you how to cut these blocks. Basically, just, if you're making a lot of these squares, cut a strip that is, excuse me, 5 3/4 inch wide. You're going to need, for each block you make, you need a 5 3/4 inch square of your dark and a 5 1/4 inch square of your light. Okay, this is going to allow you to make 4 3.5 inch half square triangles. What we do is we put our squares together, right sides together. Yep, and I would highly suggest you pin them to keep them all nice and stable. Now, this method is going to have you making blocks that are slightly larger than you need for your half square triangles. Yay! Which means you get to trim them up and have perfect 3.5 inch half square triangles. So, little bit like the rail fence technique I just showed you, so you have some trim up method, but this is so much easier. There's no complicated marking. Now that I have my 2 pieces right sides together, pinned together, you're going to sew a 1/4 inch around the square. Yep, you don't need to pivot. 1/4 inch stop, 1/4 inch stop, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Yep, all the way around the edge. Okay? And then we're going to see how the magic begins. Now that you have your 2 pieces of fabric sewed together, a 1/4 inch around on all 4 sides, now the magic begins, and we turn these 2 blocks into 4 half square triangles. And get a ruler that's not too long so it doesn't get in the way. I love this 6 by 12 inch ruler. It's just perfect for this, because I don't even need to dig out a rotating cutting mat. And you're going to cut corner to corner. Just put your ruler that corner and that corner and cut. And then be careful. Lift your ruler, rotate it the other direction, corner to corner, and then be careful and cut the other direction. Okay? Now, we have 4 triangles, and if you open them up, guess what? We have 4 half square triangles. And yep, exactly what we need for a block. This is why I love this method. There are so many blocks you're going to make that need 4 half square triangles. And this is just super easy and quick way to make them, and not putsy at all, and you get to trim them up. Now, there are other methods out there that if you're awesome at doing half square triangles with triangles and no trimming necessary, go for it. I happen to love this method. Okay, so finger press your half square triangles and then take them to the ironing board, because now it's time to trim them up. You do not want to trim up without pressing them first. So I have a set that I've already pressed. And then I get another ruler out that is a little bit smaller. This happens to be a 6-inch square ruler. I love my OmniGrid because it has an angle, a 45-degree angle on it. So what I do is I put that on my line. Whoops, supposed to remember to do something. you put that on the line of your half square triangles, making sure you have fabric up on the top to trim, and your 3.5 inch down here at the bottom is on top of your fabric, showing that you're going to have more fabric to trim off. So you just line that up, making sure your line is corner to corner. Whoops, I didn't get that corner very good, did I? There we go. Turn it around. So now you've got your nice pretty cut on that side. You line it up. 3.5 inches goes on that. Your line should now be perfect. Your angle should go corner to corner. Whoops, and I shifted my ruler. Yep, there we go. And there we go. We have a perfect 3.5 inch half square triangle. Yep, and so now you're gonna do that with all the other 3 half square triangles, so you get them all trimmed up. Then you're going to need your center 3.5 inch piece of light fabric. I just cut this out of a piece of my yellow. Once again, if you're doing a lot of these blocks, go ahead and cut a 3.5 inch strip of fabric, just like I did with the 1.5 inch strips. Cut a 3.5 inch, make sure it's nice and squared up, and then subcut it into 3.5 inch squares. Simple, simple. And then once we have those half square triangles all trimmed up, we're ready to put it all together. Now that we have all of our pieces done, 4 half square triangles, 4 rail fences, and our center 3.5 inch square, it's time to put it all together. Simplest thing to do is do your corners first, making sure your dark fabric of your half square triangle is in the middle. I had fun with that earlier, and I had everything put together, and I actually started my YouTube video. And as I was holding up the block to show you in my introduction, I looked at it and went, oh crap. I had my half square triangles wrong. Oh well. So we have those. We're gonna put our light color square in the middle, and then we're going to put our rail fences that way, up, across, and up. Okay, there we go. We have our crow's nest all laid out. Now it's as simple as putting it together. What I like to do is work in rows or columns, however you want to do it. But in this case, I will just fold that down. Oops, fold that down. And I will fold that down. And then I'm going to pin them, because this is how somehow I got my squares sewn together backwards for my half square triangles, is I must have done this, not pinned it, and well, sewed it the wrong edge, which is why I pin, because otherwise by the time I get to the sewing machine, who the heck knows what I might have done with the block. Okay, so we're gonna do this, and we're gonna get these sewn together. Okay, and I'm not gonna walk you through all of it, so I'm taking these to the sewing machine and I'm sewing a 1/4 inch on there. Then I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna make sure I lay them out again and position them correctly. I'm gonna open them up. I don't need to press them yet, but I'm gonna open them up, make sure they're positioned correctly, and then I'm going to take this block and put here and pin it. In fact, if I wanted to, I could probably do that right now. But this way, there's no chance of getting some other fabric caught up in it. So by the time I come back, I will have 3 rows of my block all sewn together. Okay, I have my 3 columns sewn together, and I'm pressing the middle seams to the middle, and on the outside rows, I'm pressing them down. or I shouldn't say down, to the outside. So it's pressed this way and it's pressed that way. Okay? That way, when we put these together, we're going to be able to easily nest our seams. Okay, make sure you lay it out and have your half square triangles laid the right direction. Excuse me. And then you'll be good to go. So now I'm going to take this side and put it over here. And here is the first place that you're going to need to match your seams. So you've got your seam from your middle square. You're going to want to make sure you pin that and get that correct. And then match this seam over here. And because you pressed your seams in the opposite directions, they're going to nest nice and neatly. And then I match my corners and this one here. Okay? So you're going to do that and sew that together. Then bring it back. Open it up all the way, bring it back, and then you're going to take this row and put it over here and do the same thing. And then we will be able to press that block and have it finished. And there we have it. Yep, the crow's nest or attic window block is all done. And I'm quite pleased with it. This is much more accurate than the first one that I did. My concept of making the strips a little bit larger and marking my inner strip worked very, very well. But you will want to practice such that you can do your rail fence blocks without having to use that technique. But you know what? There's no quilt police, and it's all about how comfortable you are with things and making it work for you. Okay, now I'm going to show you one other block. It actually, it's called, what's it called? New Waterfall. And it's made very, very similar to this. So I thought I would just show you this at the same time. The key thing is we're going to flip our half square triangles the other direction, but more importantly, what we have in the middle is a 9 patch. So with that said, we've been making our strip pieces sections where we've got the blue in the middle and yellow on the outside. Okay, that's great. But now, in order to make a 9 patch, we need another piece that is going to be yellow in the middle, or our light in the middle, and our dark on the outside. So what we need is from your strips, you can cut, let's see, I think I've got these two ready to go. Basically, these need to be 1.5 inch subcuts. So it's going to be 3.5 inches wide, just like the other one, but it only needs to be 1.5 inch. That's a really bad ruler for that. So we're going to cut this one. So this one is, so in this case, it's my yellow that I did my marking on to get a 1 inch strip of my lightest color, my yellow in the middle. And we're going to trim this up. Yep. So the top is going to be 1.25 inches down to the top of my light. The bottom of the light is at 2.25. And we're going to cut that and trim off the top. And then we're going to flip it over and make sure it is exactly 3.5 inches tall. Okay, so now I've got that cut. And then I need 2 of this other piece for the other sides of it. So once again, a 1.5 inch. We're trimming this just like we did before. I cut these over oversized, so I'm trimming it up. I didn't cut them exactly 1.5. So that is why I'm doing the extra trimming here. Whoopsie. There we go. quite get that trimmed at the top. And now it's going to be 3.5. Okay. So now we have our 3 pieces, our 3 subcuts to make our 9 patch in the middle. Whoopsie. We put them in the right order. There we go. And you can decide whether you want the dark, you know, where you want the darks. Anyway, so what we're going to do then is we're going to just fold this over and we're going to sew those together. And you're going to want to make sure you're, in this case, I had ironed these strips all before and ironed everything into the middle. And in this case, I want my middle to be pressed so they're pressing out. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to go repress those to press them out, which means that when I put this on here, we're going to be able to easily nest my seams. So, these are little pieces. So we're going to take the top, fold it over, and stitch 1/4 inch. Open it up, come back here, and then make sure you've got it placed right so you put this on the right spot. You don't want to put it up there or you'll be not very happy. So you're going to put it here and put it there. And then we're going to have our 9 patch. And then I'll show you how to piece this next one together to get the new Waterwheel block. Now that I have my cute little 9 patch in the middle, we can put this block together. And I've got most of it done already. As I mentioned, in this one, we've got our dark fabric going outside versus in our original block, we had our darks going in. This one has our dark going out. There we go. And then we have our rail fence, just like before. Isn't that a cute block? Very, very different look from the crow's nest, but it uses the same techniques. The rail fence, the half square triangles, and the only big difference is you need a 9 patch in the middle, which means you need to do strips of your dark in the middle with your light on the outside, which matches your rail fence. But then you need another strip with only a few of them for light in the middle and 2 of your darks on the outside. And that's not really that big a deal. And then you have the new Waterwheel block. Okay, with this one and the other and our 9 patch, these are perfect scenarios to be able to do pinwheel for your pressing your seams, especially this 9 patch in the middle, because it's a 3.5 inch 9 patch, so you're working with some pretty small blocks. And so pinwheel those corners, that will make it lay nice and neat. And on the other one, I pinwheeled the middles in there, and those turned out well also to make this be pressed nice and flat. There you have it. I'm going to go and get this stitched together so then you can see it fully completed, but I think you get the gist of it. Now you've learned 2 blocks that you could do. In fact, this could be really cool to combine into one quilt using the same fabrics. Both of these blocks, just a little bit different look on the same concept. And there we go, all put together. I really like this block too. It's very pretty, very different, yet similar to the other one. Yeah, very, very dramatically different. It just goes to show you how you can use the same blocks, squares in a quilt block, twist them, turn them, and have it turn out very, very differently. Yes, very nice. I think these would go very nicely in the same quilt. So there you have it. You have the crow's nest / attic window and the new Waterwheel. There you go. Same techniques, 2 different blocks. Hope you found that helpful. Take care and have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single video I published, hit the subscribe button below and then hit the bell icon. And that way you will be notified whenever I publish a new video. But you can also find me over on Facebook, facebook.com/Wendy, the initial J, Haney. Or I have a Facebook group for those of you that love quilting, needlework, books, wine, and wellness. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/lifefulfilled. The name of the group is Life Fulfilled Quilting, Needlework, Books, Wine, and Wellness. You can also find me over on my website, wendyjhaney.com. I will be doing more blogging over there eventually. As I get more of my videos done, I'll be blogging about those. But also, maybe you see some things that I'm making here and you're going, ooh, wow, I just don't want to make that myself. Well, a lot of those products will end up over there on the website that you can purchase for your friends and family. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you watching.